Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you braved the weather over the weekend. I am working from home today as my car got hit by a tree yesterday. So there's a bit of damage to it. So I need to figure out how to get that all fixed. The topic of today's masterclass, Get My Brain into Gear, is probiotics. There's a lot of confusion around probiotics. By the end, hopefully you'll know a lot more about them. So, probiotic is from the Greek word that means for life. You know, what are they even? They are living microorganisms that have intended health benefits when we consume them, essentially. They've been isolated from dairy products, some from fermenting fruits and plants, and some from human feces, which is really good. The most common bacteria in probiotics are Lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. However, there is a very popular yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii, or SB for short, which I tend to use a lot, and I think it's a fantastic probiotic. So products that have these bacteria in them are normally freeze-dried, or they contain a live bacteria or yeast. So with Lactobacillus and bifido, they have been around forever. There are newer strains coming onto the market now, but Lactobacillus and bifidobacteria are the ones that you will find in most probiotics. So Lactobacillus was discovered in the 1900s through the work of Eli Metchnikov. He saw Bulgarians eating yogurt, and he thought that it gave them made them age well. So he went to isolate the bacteria, so the Lactobacillus. He had a theory that the bacteria stopped proteins from putrefying in our guts and turned us, and in turn made us much healthier than we would have been otherwise. So that was his first foray. So that was in the 1900s. And bifidobacteria was first isolated in poo from a healthy breastfed baby in France in 1899. So you can see they both have been around for a really long time. So to talk about probiotics, I need to talk about how they're named. This gets a little bit tricky, so stick with me with this one. And when you're buying probiotics, why this is really important. So all probiotics start out with the genus, so which is the name of the bacteria. So for example, Lactobacillus, that's the name. Then there's the species, and this refers to the second name. So it's Lactobacillus is the genus, Rhamnosus or Acidophilus may be the species name. And the third thing, which is the most important thing to consider, and I see this all the time, people bring me probiotics that they're taking and they have no strain on them. You need to have a strain. So the strain is the third thing so we've got Lactobacillus, we've got Rhamnosus or Acidophilus, and then we've got the strain. So it's the most specific, and it helps identify members of the same species. So to use my Lactobacillus rhamnosus, example of a strain would be GG. The strain is really important, as some of the strains from the same family have different capabilities. So some strains are really strong and can make our way through our digestive tract. They can impact our immune system, and they can stop pathogenic bacteria from adhering into the inside of our gut, while other strains can't make it through the upper GI, and this makes them pretty much useless. So many strains have specific qualities. For example, the one that I just used, Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, is used for allergies and eczema, but will not help at all with IBS. So my takeaway message is use the right strain of probiotics for the right condition. And I do see lots of people over and over buying probiotics where the strain's not even listed on there, and it really needs to be. So the strain that works for one condition that has been studied will not necessarily work for another one. So I'll give you an example of the genus, species, and strain in non-probiotic talk. So say if I was talking about literature, the genus would be a printed book. The species would be the novel, and the strain would be the Lord of the Rings. So you can see how it all fits together. So it's really important to have all three when you're buying a probiotic. So what do probiotics do? Probiotics have a lot of positive benefits for us, and I'm not going to list them all because there's a lot, but I'm going to list a few. So they have generally have anti-inflammatory activity. They modulate our immune system. They can help regulate our transit time. So if you've got constipation or diarrhea, probiotics can be really helpful for that. They take up spaces in our gut where pathogens in our gut or in our vaginal wall, actually, that stops pathogens from sticking to the wall and then causing problems. So they can strengthen our intestinal barrier. They help repair our GI barrier and lots of other things. So they are worth taking. And I often get asked if fermented foods are probiotics. Well, the answer is no, for a few reasons. If they are wild ferments, which most of them are, if you're making them at home, they're wild ferments. You don't know the strains of bacteria that are going in them. So if you were looking at your sauerkraut that you've made, you can't identify what organisms are in them or how much is in them and what strains of the organisms are in them. Strains change from the batch to batch you make, depending what's blowing in the wind or the conditions in your kitchen where you are. So strains from food also lack a therapeutic dose of bacteria that you need for treatment of a condition. So that's one of the things to remember. They still offer you loads of benefits, but they're just not classed as probiotics for that reason. So probiotics themselves, and I touched on this before, they're generally isolated from dairy products, fermenting fruits and vegetables and plants, and some they culture from poo. So what are the conditions that you think that you would use probiotics for? Well, there have been heaps of research. So in 2014, actually, there was about 1,500 articles published about condition strain specific probiotics. So there's a lot of evidence out there, and it continues to grow. So there are some conditions that have been really well researched. And so I would say to you, you would use them when you have a condition that you're looking at. So this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the spectrum of conditions that there is scientific evidence to support probiotic use. Hello, Deb Fowler. Hello, Sabrina. I'll answer your question at the end, Sabrina. Allergic rhinitis, abdominal pain, if you use antibiotics, anxiety, eczema, gastro, bacterial vaginosis, bladder cancer, parasite infections, constipation, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, always catches me that one on a Monday, ulcerative colitis, reflux, high cholesterol, it's been specifically tested. Infants with colic is a big one. There are probiotics that can help infants with colic, specific ones. IBS, immune system function, diarrhea, mastitis, liver disease. So these have all been really well studied, and there's more, but these ones have been really well studied. So the dosage, now this is a really important thing. So dosage are always, the probiotics are always shown in CFU, which means colony forming units. So most colony forming units, they will have written on the actual label, but there are some companies that do 500 billion CFUs. Taking more is not necessarily better. So just keep that in mind when you're taking bigger doses is not necessarily the best way to take a probiotic. The way to take them to get the best benefits from them is take them when you have a meal or just after a meal, because they can make it through their GI tract a lot better once they've got a little bit of fat and a little bit of fiber to help them get down where they need to go. So probiotics are generally considered safe for most people, unless, my only caveat on this, there have been some incidents where people have been severely immunocompromised and they've had them and they've not been a good outcome. So I would check with your doctor before taking them. So if you're in hospital, I wouldn't be giving you probiotics. Some side effects that people can experience with probiotics, and they can, generally, are bloating and farting, and not too extreme. And after you take them for about 7 days, it will go away. So one of the things to remember about probiotics is that when you stop taking probiotics, that probiotics are often said, oh, they help colonize the bacteria in your gut. They don't really. They go in, they help change the environment. They put out all the good juju that helps. That's a technical term too, by the way. They put out all the good juju that helps make at a really nice place for bacteria, the good bacteria, to grow and to thrive. What happens when you stop taking probiotics, though, about, depending on the probiotics, some can last for 7 days, some longer, but normally between 7 and 14 days after you commence a probiotic, the bacteria is completely out of your system. So it will encourage that good bacteria to grow, but it won't actually make it grow, if that makes any sense. So you have to have that viable good bacteria to help it all get started. That's in there. So if you have no bifidobacteria, it's really hard to colonize bifidobacteria. Even if you're giving a bifidobacteria probiotic, it's unlikely to colonize in your gut. It will work like bifidobacteria while you're taking it, but once you're finished, 14 days after that, it's likely to have moved on and won't give you the same benefits. So Sabrina's, I'll just get to this one. So my takeaway for somebody is go to a health shop for help for buying probiotics, if you're braving this alone, because probiotics are pretty expensive and you don't want to spend money on them. You want them to be able to benefit the condition that you want. So get the probiotic that's been studied for the condition that you have, not just necessarily a multi-strain ones. So multi-strain ones are great, but they're generally just for general well-being. They're not the best for treating a specific condition. So that's the lowdown on probiotics. So Sabrina asked me, did you say rhamnosus? Yes, allergies and eczema and a couple of other things. Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG, in Australia, they're doing big clinical trials on peanut butter allergies and Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG. They're actually giving kids who have severe peanut allergies the probiotics, and it's actually curing them, and that's a word, curing them of their peanut butter allergy. It is being done in a major hospital, so don't try that at home, folks. So that's one of the things. Soil-based probiotics, do I recommend them? No, is my short answer. And the reason being is because we don't know really what's in them. There's a bit of research coming out to say that they're not so great. And with all probiotics, there is a bit of research coming out now that says taking probiotics long term is not a great thing. So my thing would be, if you've got a specific condition, for example, if you have ulcerative colitis, get the right one for that and take that until your condition improves, then take a break. You don't need to take something continually over and over. So soil probiotics, I just don't think they're studied enough. In Australia, we don't really have access to them unless we buy them from overseas, which I don't tend to do because that invalidates my insurance and stuff when I see people. But I have heard people get good results to them. Probably my only concern is they're not very well tested. You know, there's lots of heavy metals in the ground. There's lots of pesticides and all of that sort of stuff. They're not really tested throughout that efficiently enough, I don't think, at this time. So that's the lowdown on probiotics for this week. If you want more information on probiotics, I invite you to sign up for a free 15-minute call and I can give you more direction on this. So just go to www.digestivedetective.com.au. God, it's hard to get my tongue around that today. So keep your eye out later this week or early next week. I'll be launching the Perfect Poo package to help you get started on your gut recovery. So have a fabulous week and I will see you next week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.